Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out Phil Collins. In the air tonight, and that drum fill. No British canon.
When I came out on stage here tonight, I said, this Dallas audience wants to listen to the quiet songs. Am I right?
Really? Dallas?
I hope so.
Oh no.
In both his solo career and fronting Genesis, Phil Collins dominated the 1980s. His many ballads crowded the radio, his rounded face loomed from record store shelves. And everywhere, the Academy Awards, Band Aid, Live Aid, Miami Vice, Phil Collins was there. However, it was a monkey's paw kind of deal. He became omnipresent, but at the same time became the punchline to every joke.
Yes, he did.
He sold as many records as U2 or Bruce Springsteen, but the initial jolt towards a solo career was when his whole world fell apart. It was the breakup that spawned that seminal drum fill, the sound of the 80s, and the odd, persistent urban legend. This is New British Canon, and this is the story of In the Air Tonight.
Okay, y'all. Wow, Phil Collins. Yeah, when I was growing up, he was kind of everywhere. I grew up in the 80s, y'all. My mom loves Phil Collins. Therefore, I like Phil Collins. It's almost undeniable. Like, my mom was all about the Bee Gees, Phil Collins, and Billy Joel. What else? Whitney Houston. Yes. Anyway, I don't know much about what Phil Collins went through. I know his songs just because they're everywhere, or they were everywhere. The drum fill we're talking about, everybody knows the drum fill. Right? Everybody knows that drum fill. I know he was the drummer in Genesis, and then Peter Gabriel left Genesis, so Phil Collins became the singer for Genesis. And then Phil Collins went to the moon, metaphorically. I'm surprised they said his rounded face, like that. Is that a compliment? He was the butt of a lot of jokes, and I know George Harrison didn't care for him. For whatever reason, I don't know. But let's learn about Phil Collins today. Probably going to split this up into 2 episodes, because it's a long one. It's over 40 minutes, which means for me, that's an hour. Let's split it up. So here we go, y'all. Phil Collins takes over Genesis, 1975 to 78, Marriage, Peter Gabriel, and Follow You, Follow Me. Follow You, Follow Me, Genesis. I don't know that one.
In 1975, Phil Collins got married to his on-again, off-again childhood sweetheart, Canadian-born Andrea Bertorelli, having first met and dated in drama school in London as teenagers. Her family returned to Vancouver, which ended the relationship. But when the band he drummed for, Genesis, toured Canada for the first time in early 1974 to promote Selling England by the Pound, Collins and Bertorelli reconnected, getting married the following January, in the 2-week gap between legs of the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tour.
Hey, I'm going to be in Canada. What are you doing? Nice little reconnect there.
A spectre of things to come. There was no time for a honeymoon. 1975 was a pivotal year for Genesis. The 7 years prior, the band had become one of Britain's biggest concert draws, with their elongated art rock. Audiences allured by their musicality, intelligence, and their charismatic frontman, Peter Gabriel's costumed storytelling.
So confident.
In the eyes of the press, they were a bunch of toffs, public school boys who hardly conformed to the rock and roll standard.
What's a toff? Toff can refer to British English slang for an aristocratic or upper-class person. Okay. Learn a new word. Toff.
Toffs, public school boys who hardly conformed to the rock and roll standard. Their fans, long overcoated, fishing-hatted student types, who either made notes or spaced out to their labyrinthine epics, like the 23-minute-long Supper's Ready.
We walked across the fields to see the children of the West.
23 minutes.
Your eyes, it's full of surprise. Everyone rides like the fox on the rocks.
That's the same song.
But despite this...
Yeah, that's, I'm a musician, and I like to get nerdy with the theory and the rhythms, the syncopation I like drumline music. I was in drumlines for 9 years. I like all that complicated stuff. But a 23-minute song that changes like that, that's exhausting. And if there's one part you like, you gotta fast forward it to that part. Turns me off. But somebody had to do it, I guess.
But despite this association, in April 1974, they managed to earn themselves their first UK Top 40 single, with the Beatlesque whimsy of I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe, a rarity for such an album-focused genre. Furthermore, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway from November 74, an ungainly double LP with lyrics and concept, penned almost entirely by Gabriel, would continue their international ascent, their first album to crack the US Billboard Top 50.
Wow. So they're this prog rock band and all of a sudden they have a hit song? Interesting. It's interesting knowing where this goes to Phil Collins' solo career with a lot of hit songs. They got a little bit of that money. They're like, guys, these hit songs are easier to play. And they make a lot more money. What do you think?
But Gabriel tired of the rock and roll lifestyle. He hated the constant cycle of writing, then touring, with no room for other projects. Complicating matters, he and his wife were dealing with the difficult birth of their daughter. The stress negatively impacted his ability to write lyrics, resulting in long instrumental interludes on the Lamb Lies second LP.
I'm falling asleep.
When he told the band of his intention to leave during a stop in Cleveland, no one was surprised. He stayed until the tour wrapped up in June 1975 and left Genesis without a frontman, after several months of auditions for a replacement, training them on new tracks on the in-progress A Trick of the Tail album.
Oh, God.
They had found nothing but disappointment. But as he'd been coaching the applicants through the new songs, and on the suggestion of his wife, Collins hesitantly stepped up. It's a complete lie to suggest that I was happy to jump in after Peter left. Sure, the perception that Genesis was a one-man show did frustrate me, but the last thing I wanted to do was become the singer. Being the singer was the least respectable gig in the band, as far as I was concerned. But in the end, the guys said that I sounded better than the people I was teaching.
Wow. He does have a good voice. You know what? He also has a similar texture in his voice as Peter Gabriel. There's I don't know what word to use, but I want to say splatter, but it's not. That's not the word. It's like the way it breaks up is very similar. Do you know what I mean? I also learned in the Peter Gabriel Trash Theory video that the breakup was friendly. They understood. Everybody was still buddies after that. And then later on, they do some collaborations. They're buddies after that. That doesn't always happen, you know?
Their audience were not unfamiliar with Collins' voice. He had provided harmonies on Genesis records since he joined in 1970, and even sang lead a couple of times.
Looking back at days of four instead of two.
Sounds like Peter.
The lady would say that she had enough.
It also helped that Collins' soft tone was reminiscent of Gabriel's. However, Collins would face an uphill battle on filling the place of their beloved former singer. His main worry wasn't taking Gabriel's place as a vocalist, so much as taking his place as a storyteller. Gabriel told bizarre stories to keep the audience entertained, while guitarist Mike Rutherford tuned his 12-string, and the surreal anecdotes had become an important part of the band's image. Plus, with former King Crimson sixman Bill Burford, and later Frank Zappa veteran Chester Thompson filling in on drums, he felt a bit exposed on stage when no longer hidden behind his drum kit. Their first album with Collins fronting, February 1976's A Trick of the Tail, hit number 3 on the charts, equaling Selling England, and remaining on the UK album chart for 7 months.
Number 3? Hang on. I gotta hear something from it because For a prog rock band to go to number 3, they must have already transitioned out of the prog rock thing, right? Albums. This one. Wow. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Was it their 9th album? Dancing on a Volcano. Squonk. Those are the 2 supposedly best songs or most successful songs. It sounds pretty prog still. Number 3? That's what I just heard.
Collins was on tour to promote the album while his pregnant wife stayed at home. He returned home long enough to witness the birth of their son, Simon, in September, but had to leave a few days later to record a Trick of the Tail's follow-up, Wind and Withering, in the Netherlands.
Very interesting that Peter Gabriel left because he's having a kid. Phil Collins steps in as singer. He has a kid. He doesn't step down. He keeps touring. Was that the right choice? I don't know.
His constant absence was already beginning to impact his new marriage. But the Genesis industrial complex must always be moving forward, stopping for no one. In hindsight, I could have said, Genesis, I'm off to look after my wife. But we're all expected to give everything to the band, even if there are later recurring attempts to reverse engineer such situations. Well, if only you told us, we could have moved the start date. But while I've been emboldened as a performer by becoming the frontman, behind closed doors I'm too timid to speak up. Collins' marriage wasn't the only relationship dissolving. Guitarist Steve Hackett was frustrated with his bandmates' lack of interest in his songwriting efforts, so left during the mixing sessions for their 1977 live album, Seconds Out. Rather than replace him, the remaining band members decided to continue as a three-piece, at least on record. Phil Collins on drums and vocals, Tony Banks on keyboards, and Mike Rutherford on guitars and bass. The resulting album, March 1978's And Then There Were Three, saw them move further away from the extended prog rock of previous releases, instead edging closer to the Beatles and Kinks-style singles group they'd always aspired to be. Their atypical love song, Follow You, Follow Me, was even a UK top 10 single.
Let's hear it.
Gaining
That sounds like Phil Collins' solo stuff, doesn't it? So they move towards the pop stuff on the next album. They did one more album and then this album. Okay, so this was the second album where Phil Collins... No, the third album where Phil Collins was the singer, right? Right, yes. Y'all, that's some damn impressive drumming I just heard. Way to go, Phil. Wow.
Gaining Genesis a bunch of new fans, but alienating older ones. Because I had become the singer a couple albums earlier, I was given the blame. Suddenly there was this guy that not only can sing and play drums, but he's been to drama school. Fans thought he's probably Mr. Showbiz, and he's pushed Pete out. And it wasn't like that at all. But it makes a better story.
Yeah.
The truth is, we grew up. We matured.
Very interesting. Yeah, those prog rock fans, they'll turn on you if you go pop, right? If they think you're making a little money from music. Oh, the end of Phil Collins' marriage. 1979 to 80. Breakup, John Martin and Duke. Please don't ask, Genesis.
In 1978, Genesis went all in to try and break the US.
Right.
In the UK, they'd had hits, their albums were selling well, but the UK is a much smaller market. At the time, a British band needed to commit to touring consistently in the hopes that their songs might get picked up by local radio stations in the US. So for their resulting 8-month 1978 world tour, Genesis played 48 dates over 3 non-consecutive months in the US and Canada, after which Follow You, Follow Me had reached number 23 on the US Billboard charts.
Okay.
And Then There Were Three had gone gold in both the US and Canada, and Phil Collins' marriage had fallen apart. 40 years of he said, she says have blurred the details of what exactly happened. Before leaving on tour, Bertorelli has said she had expressed to her husband that she felt like she wasn't going to be able to cope with him being away for so long, in their Surrey home with 2 young children, and her friends and family in Vancouver. Collins remembers it more as a threat. If you go, I won't be here when you get back. Famously, Collins points to Bertorelli's affair with the guy he'd employed to paint the house as their marriage's endpoint. Bertorelli contends that in her mind the marriage was over way before that his neglect, temper, and his own alleged infidelities had driven her away. And indeed, one cannot fathom just how much your wife has grown to resent you when you are on different continents for months at a time. When the tour ended, Bertorelli took the kids back to Vancouver for Christmas. Collins followed his wife in an attempt to save his marriage, intent on living in Canada if that was what it would take to win her back. As such, he told his bandmates that functionally he was out of Genesis, being that the 10-hour commute to band practice would not be tenable. But fearing they might lose another frontman, Banks Rutherford and band manager Tony Smith instead allowed him some compassionate leave to sort his life out.
Hey, that's great. They probably need a break. How many albums? This is like 9 albums or something by now, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 albums. Whew. Take a break, boys. You deserve it. Take like a 2-year break. You'll be fine. Fans will be here when you get back.
I was on the edge and wondering about leaving Phil, so I hoped space would help me decide. Unfortunately, time is the one thing he wouldn't give me. He'd call constantly, and when I'd answer, instantly start raging, calling me names, telling me to come home. He turned up unexpectedly a couple of times. He didn't realize he was driving me further away. The last time we were together, he booked us into a lovely hotel in Vancouver and tried to persuade me to come home. But it was too late. In the end, Collins spent 4 months in Canada before realizing his efforts were for naught. It was over. As he returned to England, he couldn't just go back to work to numb the hurt. Genesis had taken a year off for the first time ever.
Nice.
Banks and Rutherford were in Sweden, taking this hiatus to work on solo records at ABBA's Polar Studios.
Okay.
Instead, he was left to either stare at the walls of his newly refurbished, empty Surrey home, or spend his time at the local pub. Therefore, as a way of channeling his emotions, he started writing songs about his situation.
Okay.
He demoed these by converting his house's master bedroom into a home studio with an 8-track tape machine, Prophet 5 synthesizer, piano, and Roland's CR78 drum machine. Songs like The Roof Is Leaking, I Missed Again, and the more pointed If Leaving Me Is Easy, would be moulded by his downbeat, meditative mood. While composing these songs, most of the time Collins would find a vocal melody first, and then notes would become words, become sentences, their intent and meaning mostly subconscious, but almost always about his wife.
Yo, that's how it's done. That's how some of the greatest songwriters write songs. The melody just comes, then you figure out the chords around the melody, and usually with the melody some lyrics come, subconscious, or from out there. We've talked about this. That's a good way to do it.
And your words start to fade.
Collins didn't just make his own music during this time. During the recording of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Brian Eno had contributed his trademark electronic treatments to a couple of tracks.
The hall runs like clockwork. The hands mark out the talent.
And returning the favour, Collins had drummed on the Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy track, Mother Whale Eyeless. Since then, he continued to drum for Eno.
He's a good drummer.
as well as
Okay.
becoming a frequent collaborator within the British art rock inner circle. So in 1979, he supplied beats for Robert Fripp, former bandmate Peter Gabriel, and folk jazz rocker John Martin. In the latter, he found a co-conspirator.
He's a versatile drummer. He can do it all. He's also playing the piano. I didn't know that about him. I didn't know he could do all that. I mean, I knew he was a drummer and a good singer. I didn't know he was a piano player. And a songwriter. He's going all over England playing drums for people. That's great. That's great. He's an artist.
In the latter, he found a co-conspirator in romantic anguish. Martin, too, was going through a particularly bitter divorce. As such, much of his emotionally raw 1980 album, Grace and Danger, was recorded in Collins's bedroom, in between the two men making angry, drunken phone calls to their exes. With John, it was was far more intense, because we were both involved in the breakup of our particular marriages, with the consequent frictions ultimately providing both our albums with the main lyrical thrust. First, I noticed that John was in something of a bad shape, and I offered moral support by inviting him to stay here in the house, where we recorded the basic tracks for Grace. Actually, we ended up offering each other incredible moral support.
That's great.
When I was being shaken up, he'd help me out of my particular slump, and vice versa.
Wow. What a good buddy. That's the kind of support you can't fake, you know? I'm sure a lot of friends want to come help out when a divorce is happening, but they don't understand because they've not been through it, or not going through it, but they're both going through it. Amazing.
When Genesis reconvened in the second half of 1979, Collins for the first time had a bevy of songs to submit, playing the threadbare home demos to his bandmates. A couple were snatched up for their next album, 1980's Duke. Misunderstanding would end up its third single, and number one in Canada, and was Collins' attempt to ape various soft rock radio songs. Most strikingly, Toto's Hold the Line.
Okay, I know that song. I know that one. I've heard it a billion times, maybe a million. That was Genesis. Okay, so for me, that's the earliest Genesis song that I recognize. Okay, got it.
Please don't ask. He was more stark in his feelings. A reflection on all he had lost over the last year.
Oh my God, he's singing about his kid. Oh, that's got to be hard. I didn't even think of that.
Completing the album, Collins was given the job to drive down to London and play Duke to the head of their US label, Atlantic, the legendary record producer, Ahmet Ertegun. After listening to the album with some drinks, he asked Collins how he was, how the looming divorce was going, what he'd been doing to stay sane. Collins could answer all these questions with the demo cassette he kept in his car tape deck, so played him these rudimentary, heartbroken songs. Ertegun was particularly impressed by an ominous, slow burner, built on simple synth chords, and an ambling drum machine beat, a track that his bandmates had dismissed. However, when the man who discovered Aretha Franklin and Otis Redding thinks you have a hit on your hands, you take notice.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Ahmet Ertegun is a legend, y'all. A legend. Okay, so he went to London. Let me just get this last story straight in my head. Okay, he went to London to meet with Ahmet Ertegun, head of Atlantic, who's a legend. Even at that time, he was a legend. And they played the Genesis album to Ahmet. And then they were hanging out, and Ahmet said, "Hey, how's it going? How you doing?" And Colin says, "Well, let me play you this tape that's in my car. That'll answer your question." And Ahmet was floored. He said, "Hey, this is good. Let's make money off it. And I guess In the Air Tonight was one of those songs. So Genesis rejected In the Air Tonight, and Amit's like, that's a hit. Okay.
A hit on your hands. You take notice.
Creating In the Air Tonight, 1979 to 81, Roland CR78, that's a keyboard, I think? Or is that the drum machine? I don't remember. Gated reverb, and that paint pot. In the Air Tonight demo. That sounds like the final version.
What is instantly striking about In the Air Tonight is its drum machine beat. A ceaseless, hollow, mechanized shuffle. After their visit to Japan at the end of 1978, the members of Genesis were each gifted a CR78 drum machine from electronics company Roland. Collins initially dismissed the offer. As a drummer, why would he ever need one? It was only after he started writing that he understood its utility as both a metronome, and so he wouldn't have to go to the effort of miking up live drums in his bedroom. But the robot filling in is essential to the pitch black mood of In the Air Tonight.
The whole thing was set up by this, really, the mood of this drum machine, for me. When you hear that, you couldn't possibly replace that with real drums. You know, people say, why do you use drum machine, you know, when you're a drummer? And it's just that sometimes drum machines give you things that, it's the atmosphere, it's relentless, it doesn't move. A drummer would get bored playing anything like this. He'd put the dum, and it would ruin the sort of, the relentlessness of it.
Wow, that's very well said, yeah. I would also add relentless, absolutely, but hypnotic. There's a hypnotic vibe to that. It pulls you in. You start, like, you kind of start to try to learn it and predict it, but then your brain, like, it's hypnotic is what I'm trying to say.
The song is an exercise in dynamics. Much of Genesis's early work had various ambitious elements fighting to be heard.
Very different.
In the Air Tonight is the opposite. It's mostly negative space. This is, of course, why when the real flesh and blood drums thunder in, it's so impactful. They burst through the silence. Collins' original demo doesn't have the drum break, nor the increase in intensity after the line, It wasn't until we started recording the songs with Hugh Padgham for Face Value in late 1980 that the real drums were added, and that especially battering tone was seized upon. Collins had previously worked with Padgham when he drummed on Peter Gabriel's third self-titled album, known as Melt.
That's the collab.
Where on the track Intruder, Gabriel tasked Collins to create a drum beat without cymbals. At the same time, Townhouse Studio 2, where they were recording, had a brand new SSL desk with cutting-edge filtering and compression technology. When Collins was tuning up, Padgham had pressed the reverse talkback button, and Phil's practice hits took on an impressive weight, creating what would become his trademark drum sound. The whole essence of the sound is the compression of it, which makes it sound really fat, and then the second that there is a lull in the sound, the gate just shuts it off. The fact that the drums were in a very live room. When you compress a sound in a live room, it brings up all the background noise and the echo in the room. When you compress a drum sound in a live room like that, it makes it just sound much bigger. And it makes the room sound bigger as well. Therefore, when you go from something sounding big to nothing, you get this feeling of massive contrast. That is the whole essence of why the sound was so interesting, because it is going from all to nothing in milliseconds. This gated reverb process was repeated for In the Air Tonight. Furthermore, the ba-dum 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 dum dum was a late addition, and a suggestion from Ertegun. His belief was that without that seismic fill, no one would know how to dance to the last part of the song. Without the lead in, no one would know where the first beat of the bar is. It also acts as a release of tension, both in the song, but also metaphorically. After going to Vancouver and trying to reason...
Okay, hang on. I have to stop it right there, because Townhouse Studio in London. Show me on a map. That Studio 2 is actually really famous. Permanently closed. Oh well. I guess that's where it was. But there's a stone wall in that room. It's very live, like very reverberant. And the SSL console had a talkback feature. So you're in the control room, which is like, it's all soundproofed off, where the console is, the desk and all the equipment. And then there's a live room where the musicians play, which is that room with all the stone. That's where the drums were set up. Usually there's a microphone just hanging from the ceiling or somewhere in the room so that the people in the control room can hear the people in the live room and communicate without having to like lean into the microphone right next to a guitar amp or something. There's usually a microphone just out in the open, right? And when you connect that to the SSL, there's an actual dedicated circuit for a talkback mic in the console, and it's very heavily compressed, like Hugh Padgham was saying, so that the quiet sounds are loud, and it actually makes the loud sound soft, so it like squeezes the sound, so that if a musician is out there and they're just talking normally, they can be heard through the talkback mic. Well, I guess Phil was playing, and Hugh hit the talkback mic to hear, I don't know what, but Peter Gabriel and whoever else was in there, and Hugh probably, they heard the drums coming through the talkback mic and that extreme compression, and they were like, wow, that sounds awesome. Let's put that on the record. And so they put that on Peter Gabriel's record, and it became a thing. It became the sound of the 80s. And then the gated reverb thing that he's talking about, that's so let me back up. There's a piece of gear called a gate, and it basically, when you run sound through it, whenever the sound stops or gets quiet enough, it totally cuts off the signal, so you don't hear anything. So it's used on drums a lot, so that, let's say you got a snare drum microphone right here and a microphone for the tom right here. You don't want the tom microphone to be picking up the snare drum and the snare drum microphone to be picking up the tom. I mean, if it does, it's not the end of the world, but usually people try to keep it all separate for control. So with a gate, whenever the snare hits, that channel, the snare channel, opens up, and then whenever the snare hit goes away, it closes off. And you can adjust the level of where the gate closes off. So an extremely gated reverb would sound like ksh, ksh, instead of ksh. You know, you can cut off the tail of that reverb. So without the gate, it would go ksh. But with the gate, it goes ksh. See what I mean? You know what I mean. Anyway, that became extremely popular to do in the 80s. Sorry to go down that rabbit hole, but I thought you might want to know. Okay, here's the room. Here's that room, and there's a drum set up next to it. Look at that. See all that hard stone? Not only is it really hard, but the surface is all crazy and bumpy, and when a sound comes to the wall, it's reflecting it in all different directions, so it's diffusing it all around, and it makes that reverb sound thicker, you know? Okay, anyway, that's where Phil Collins was doing his drumming. Back to the video.
With her over the phone. His songs were his last attempt to going to Vancouver. After going to Vancouver and trying to reason with her over the phone, his songs were his last attempt to communicate his hurt to his soon-to-be ex-wife, though passed through his usual subconscious spontaneity.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
though In the Air Tonight might seem to have a storyline. The drowning, the remembrances, the lies.
Well, if you told me you were drowning, I've seen your face before, my friend. It's all been a pack of lies.
It is just his frustration and resentment at not being heard, filtered into a piece in D minor, the saddest of all keys.
And I've been waiting for this moment for all my life.
As soon as he got his words together, he wrote them down on the nearest piece of paper he had at hand. It just so happened it was an invoice from the decorators.
You couldn't wipe off that grin. I know where you've been.
I went through a lot of pain.
The painter. The painter.
That grin. I know where you've been.
I went through a lot of pain. I don't mean Lennon pain, but I did go through an awful lot of bad times when my marriage broke up. Because I went to school with my wife, and I went out with her on and off since I was 13. And every man wants an heir, and I had a fantastic son, and I have a daughter as well, and I couldn't believe it. I spent hours on the phone when she left me. Contrary to conventional wisdom, In the Air Tonight, this weird, slow, synth-led murder fantasy, was released as Face Value's lead single in January 1981.
Wow. Yeah.
Expectations were low, with the song entering the UK chart at number 36. But after Genesis had snubbed Top of the Pops during the 70s, Phil Collins would appear on the nation's favourite music show and elevate the song significantly.
Okay.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
Wearing the same kind of white Converse that he was married in, and with a conspicuous can of paint on his makeshift keyboard stand, he seemed to be sending psychic
painter.
knives directly to his now ex-wife. Not that Collins saw it that way.
Know where you've been. It's all been a pack of lies.
The Top of the Pops performance has become one of those myths. I wasn't a singer yet, or didn't feel like one, and I didn't want to just stand there, so we decided I'd sit and play keyboards. But what are we going to put the keyboards on? A keyboard stand looks poncy, so we decided on a workmate. Then there was the drum machine. Where are we going to put that? Put it on a tea chest. Tea chest, workmate. During rehearsal, more and more things got added,
Okay.
and one was a paint pot. The ex-wife saw it and thought it was because she went out with a decorator.
Right.
She saw it and felt guilty, but honestly, it was the farthest thing from my mind.
Isn't that fascinating? Wow. I feel like his music with Genesis was very calculated and brainy. It was very much from the head. But his solo stuff is subconscious. It's like from his, I want to say heart, but through his soul, his subconscious, and he was just letting it flow. And then things started happening. Seems like in Genesis he was trying really hard, but in his solo stuff he was just going with the flow, letting it happen, being an artist. Man, I wish I knew all that when I was younger. To just let it, don't try so hard. Don't try so hard. That weird little voice in the back of your mind, listen to it. Listen to it. It's saying, it's telling you how to do it. It's giving you melodies. It's giving you lyrics. They're all there. You just gotta listen to it, right? Anyway, y'all, I think we're gonna stop the video here. This will be part 1, and then we'll continue part 2 on Tuesday. This is getting me hyped up to watch him succeed, you know? Anyway, y'all, I'd like to say thanks to my patrons. Thanks to my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.